Hello and a very happy new year to you all. It's that time once again for my annual list of favourite horror films that have been released in the UK from over the last 12 months. As always, the list is somewhat arbitrary as I haven't seen every film that was released this last year, and my choices are based purely on how much I personally enjoyed them. So, in no particular order, let's kick things off with my first choice, Boys in the Trees. Set in a suburb of Adelaide in the late 1980s, two former friends who've grown apart reconnect on Halloween night, having just left school. But their nostalgic stroll around the town is overshadowed by something sinister. A very atmospheric film which deals with issues of coming of age, fitting in and growing apart, but set against a supernatural backdrop. It's a very clever film which relies very heavily on symbolism, so you really need to pay attention to what's going on, and it's very much a slow burner, but overall I really enjoyed this. The film is also something of a first on my list, as it's only available on streaming services in the UK and not on disc, something I expect we'll see more of in the future. Which sort of leads me on to my next title in my pick of favourite horror films of 2017, Death Note. Loosely based on the Japanese comic of the same name, a high school student discovers a book which will cause the death of anyone whose name he writes in it. So he decides to have a little fun bumping off criminals, gangs and other lowlifes who escape justice. But as the book belongs to a demonic death god named Ryuk, you just know that something bad is going to happen eventually. Kind of in a similar vein to the Final Destination films, I thought this was great fun which gives adage to the old saying, with great power comes great responsibility, and I thought Willem Dafoe was aptly cast as the voice of the demon Ryuk, as he has just the right menacing voice for this. Not your typical film, as it's only available on Netflix, which again is something I'm sure we're going to see more of in the future. I'm aware fans of the original Japanese material have been critical of this adaptation, but viewed on its own merits I enjoyed it. Moving from demons to zombies now with our next title, What We Become. There's something rotten in the state of Denmark when the citizens of Copenhagen find themselves under martial law, as a zombie outbreak starts sweeping through the suburbs and the military start quarantining everyone in their homes. But once the zombie apocalypse goes into full swing and the military start pulling out, one family has to band together to try and make it out alive. Filmed in Danish with English subtitles, it's a bit of a slowie to begin with, but is nevertheless a very tense survival thriller. Anyway, lightening the tone a bit with our next title, we have Eat Locals. A group of vampires having their annual general meeting at a remote farmhouse encounter problems when their newest recruit announces that he doesn't want to be a vampire. Then, to make matters worse, their party is gate-crashed by an elite special forces unit who specialise in vampire hunting. A writer's horror comedy with an excellent cast which includes genre regular Tony Curran, Doctor Who's Freeman Agerman and Daredevil's Charlie Cox, along with gangster film regular Dexter Fletcher, who's playing a farmer who's bloodthirsty for a very different reason. Bloody good fun, this is worth watching if only for seeing TV comedy actress Annette Crosby brandishing a machine gun and swearing. Keeping with the vampire theme, my next pick of favourite horror films from 2017 is Underworld Blood Wars. Kate Beckinsale returns in the skin-tight leather and PVC once more to battle against the werewolves, as they seek to wipe out the vampires for good in this fifth outing in the Underworld franchise. Kate was on fine form as always, and it was good to see Charles Dance and Theo James reprising their roles from Part 4, and I also really like Daisy Head in this as the vampire Alexia. However, I will admit that this is not the best of the Underworld films, and there were a number of plot holes that didn't sit right with me, but overall I did enjoy this. Next up, Get Out. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner meets the Stepford Wives, as the black boyfriend of a young white girl finds there may be an ulterior motive for her wanting him to meet her parents. Genuinely unnerving in places, as you're never quite sure until near the end just what's going on, though this was offset by some wicked black humour, if you'll pardon the pun, which also made it great fun to watch. Another film which was bloody good fun, Happy Death Day. A college girl is killed by someone in a mask, only to wake up and find herself reliving the same day. But attempting to change her fate merely results in her getting killed elsewhere, and she is forced to relive each day until she can outwit the killer. Best described as a slasher movie version of Groundhog Day, it's not a comedy as such, but doesn't take itself too seriously either. It was kind of fun trying to guess who the killer is, as there's quite a few red herrings in this. Which brings me on to my choice of Best Horror Movie of 2017. After very careful consideration, my choice for the Best Horror Film of the Year goes to The Void. H.P. Lovecraft meets Lucio Fulci's The Beyond and John Carpenter's assault on Precinct 13 as a sheriff's deputy and the staff and patients at a remote hospital find the building under siege from a group of bizarre cult members. However, it's not the people outside they need to worry about, as they discover something nasty lurking in the basement. A very tense thriller with numerous twists in which it's not immediately obvious who the real bad guys are until near the end, and I found myself on the edge of my seat throughout. I actually had the pleasure of seeing this one back in 2016 at the Mayhem Festival, and also had the pleasure of meeting the filmmakers. I really loved this one, and if you haven't seen this already, then you should waste no time in checking this out. And thus concludes this year's roundup of my favourite horror films. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Let me know what you thought of my choices in the comment section below, and let us know what films you would have liked to have seen included on this. Also, be sure to click that thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. So, until the next video,